I'm 32 now and I've been through a lot in my life. But there are 3 nights from my teenage years that I still can't shake. 3 babysitting jobs that changed how I see the world. How I see houses. How I see the space between what parents tell you and what actually happens when you're alone with their kids. These aren't stories about ghosts or monsters. These are about real people. Real moments. Real fear. Let me tell you about them. Story 1. The house with too many doors. I was 16 when I took the job watching the Hendersons' daughter Lily. It was my 4th or 5th babysitting gig overall, and I was starting to feel confident. Like I knew what I was doing. The Hendersons were friends of my mom's from her book club, and Mrs. Henderson had mentioned needing a sitter for a Saturday night. My mom volunteered me before I could even say yes, which is how these things usually went. Their house was in one of those newer developments on the edge of town. You know the kind? Where every house looks almost identical, just with different colored shutters or garage doors. Big 2-story colonials with perfectly manicured lawns and those decorative mailboxes that look like miniature versions of the houses themselves. I remember pulling up with my mom around 6 p.m. on a Saturday in late October. The sun was already starting to set earlier, and there was that particular kind of autumn chill in the air that makes everything feel a little more serious. Mrs. Henderson answered the door in a navy blue dress, pearl earrings already in. Mr. Henderson was upstairs still getting ready, she said. She led me inside, talking the whole time about how grateful she was, how Lily was such an easy kid, how I shouldn't have any problems at all. The house smelled like vanilla candles and new carpet. Everything was beige and cream and tastefully decorated in that way that makes you afraid to touch anything. Lily was 7. She had these big brown eyes and straight dark hair cut into a bob with bangs. She was sitting on the couch in the living room watching some animated movie on TV, and she barely looked up when her mom introduced us. Mrs. Henderson walked me through the house while Mr. Henderson finished getting ready upstairs. She showed me where everything was: the kitchen, the bathroom, Lily's room upstairs, the guest bathroom, the den. The house was big. Bigger than it looked from outside. What struck me most was how many doors there were. I'm not talking about bedroom doors. I mean doors everywhere. Closet doors. Linen closet doors. Pantry doors. A door to the garage. A door to the basement. A door to what Mrs. Henderson called the utility room. A door to the laundry room. Another door to what looked like a storage space under the stairs. Every single one of them was closed. Mrs. Henderson noticed me looking and laughed a little. I know. We're obsessive about keeping doors closed. Brian, my husband, he's very particular about it. Says it's better for the HVAC system or something. Keeps the temperature regulated. I nodded like that made perfect sense, even though I'd never heard of anyone caring that much about doors before. She went through the evening routine. Lily could have mac and cheese for dinner, already made, just needed to be heated up. Bedtime was 8:30. She could watch TV until then, but nothing scary. If she needed anything, I should text Mrs. Henderson, but she probably wouldn't because Lily was so independent. Mr. Henderson came downstairs then, and they both said goodbye to Lily, who barely acknowledged them. The door closed behind them and I heard their car start in the driveway. Silence. Just me, Lily, and a house full of closed doors. The first hour was easy. Lily stayed glued to the TV. I sat on the other end of the couch, scrolling through my phone, occasionally asking if she needed anything. She'd shake her head without looking at me. Around 7 o'clock, I heated up her mac and cheese. She ate it on the couch while watching another movie. I made myself a sandwich and ate standing in the kitchen because I still felt weird about sitting at someone else's dining table. That's when I noticed the door to the basement. It was in the kitchen, tucked next to the refrigerator. Just a plain white door with a brass doorknob. Completely unremarkable except for one thing. It was slightly open. Just a crack. Maybe an inch. I stared at it for a second. I specifically remembered Mrs. Henderson closing it when she'd shown me around. She'd pointed to it and said, "Basement. You won't need to go down there." I walked over and pushed it shut. It clicked into place. I went back to the living room. Lily was still watching TV. "Hey Lily, did you open the basement door?" She didn't look at me. "No." "You sure?" "I'm not allowed to go down there." Fair enough. Maybe I'd remembered wrong. Or maybe the door didn't latch properly. At 8:15, I told Lily it was time to start getting ready for bed. She sighed dramatically but turned off the TV and trudged upstairs. I followed her, trying to remember which room was hers. Her bedroom was at the end of the hallway on the left. Pink walls, white furniture, stuffed animals arranged neatly on shelves. A nightlight shaped like a star plugged in near her bed. She changed into her pajamas in the bathroom and came back brushing her teeth. I asked if she wanted me to read her a story. She shook her head. "Can you just leave my door open a little?" she asked. Sure. How much? She held up her fingers, indicating maybe 3 or 4 inches. I tucked her in, left the door cracked exactly how she'd shown me, and went back downstairs. The basement door was open again. Not just a crack this time. Fully open. I stopped in the kitchen doorway and stared at it. The basement stairs descended into darkness. I couldn't see the bottom. My first thought was that Lily had somehow come down while I was in the bathroom or looking away. But that didn't make sense. She'd been with me the whole time. My second thought was that maybe Mr. Henderson's obsession with closed doors wasn't about HVAC at all. I walked over and looked down the basement stairs. There was a light switch at the top. I flipped it on. A single bare bulb at the bottom of the stairs lit up, casting long shadows. Concrete steps. Unfinished basement. I could see part of a washing machine. Some storage boxes. Normal basement stuff. Nothing moving. I pulled the door shut. This time I made sure it latched. I even tested it, pushing on it to make sure it didn't swing open. It held. I went to the living room and turned on the TV, keeping the volume low so I wouldn't wake Lily. I tried to focus on the show, but I kept glancing toward the kitchen. About 20 minutes later, I heard something. A soft thud. It came from upstairs. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. Then footsteps. Small, light footsteps. Lily. I sighed and got up, figuring she needed water or had to use the bathroom. But when I got to the stairs and looked up, Lily's door was still cracked open exactly how I'd left it. The footsteps had stopped. Lily? I called up the stairs. No answer. I climbed the stairs slowly. The hallway was dark except for the glow from Lily's night light spilling out through the crack in her door. I pushed her door open a little more and peeked inside. She was in bed. Asleep. Her breathing was deep and even. I stood there for a second, confused. I definitely heard footsteps. That's when I noticed something. The door to the guest bathroom, the one across the hall from Lily's room, was open. I distinctly remembered it being closed. I walked over and looked inside. Nothing. Just a bathroom. Towels folded neatly on the rack. Everything in its place. I closed the door and went back downstairs. The basement door was open again. Wide open. My stomach dropped. This time I didn't go investigate. I didn't walk over and close it. I stood in the living room, staring at the open doorway, and felt my heart start to pound. Someone was opening these doors. Not Lily. She was asleep. Not me. Someone else. I pulled out my phone and texted Mrs. Henderson. Hey, quick question. Does the basement door not latch properly? It keeps opening. I watched the screen, waiting for the 3 dots to appear. They didn't. She was probably at dinner. Phone on silent. I looked back at the basement door. It was still open. I forced myself to walk over. I grabbed the doorknob and pulled it shut harder this time. I twisted the lock, a simple push-button lock on the knob, and heard it click into place. Lock. No way it was opening now. I went back to the couch and tried to calm down. I told myself I was being paranoid. Old houses settle. Doors don't latch right. There's always an explanation. But this house wasn't old. I sat there, phone in my lap, eyes on the basement door. 5 minutes passed. 10. The door stayed closed. I started to relax. Maybe the lock was all it needed. Then I heard it. A sound from the basement. Not footsteps. Not a thud. A voice. Muffled. Distant. But definitely a voice. I couldn't make out words. It sounded like someone talking very quietly. Almost like a murmur. I stood up. The basement door was still closed. Still locked. But the voice continued. Soft. Persistent. I walked closer. The murmuring stopped. Silence. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. I pulled back, and that's when I saw it. The doorknob was turning. Slowly. Left then right. Like someone on the other side was trying to open it. But it was locked. The knob turned, but the door didn't open. I stepped back. The turning stopped. Then, from the other side of the door, I heard 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock. 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 I ran. I didn't think. I didn't process. I just turned and ran up the stairs to Lily's room. I opened her door, scooped her up out of bed. She barely woke, just made a sleepy sound, and carried her down the hall to the guest bedroom. I locked the door behind us. I set Lily on the bed. She was more awake now, confused. What's wrong? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Nothing, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. I pulled out my phone and called Mrs. Henderson. Rang. And rang. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted her. Please call me. It's an emergency. I sat on the bed next to Lily, listening. I didn't hear anything from downstairs. No footsteps. No doors opening. No voices. Just silence. We sat there for maybe 20 minutes. Lily started to fall back asleep, leaning against me. My phone buzzed. Mrs. Henderson. What's wrong? Are you okay? I called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. What happened? Is Lily okay? She's fine, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. But I need to know, is there anyone else in the house? Silence. What do you mean? She asked slowly. I mean, is there anyone who might be in the basement? Or anywhere else? Someone who might be opening doors. Another pause. No, she said. We're the only ones with keys. What? What's going on? I told her. The doors opening. The voice. The knocking. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a long silence. We're coming home, she said finally. Right now. Lock yourself in a room with Lily and don't come out until we get there. I already did. Good. We'll be there in 20 minutes. I'm calling the police. The call ended. I sat there, holding Lily, who was almost asleep again, and listened. 15 minutes later, I heard sirens. Then voices downstairs. Then footsteps on the stairs. A knock on the guest bedroom door. Miss? It's the police. You can come out. I opened the door. 2 officers stood there, flashlights in hand. They'd searched the whole house. Every room. Every closet. The basement too. No one. But they found something. The basement door, the one I'd locked, was wide open. And the lock was still engaged. Meaning someone had opened it from the inside. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson got home about 10 minutes after the police. Mrs. Henderson hugged Lily, then hugged me, apologizing over and over. The police asked me more questions. I answered as best I could. Before they left, one of the officers pulled Mr. Henderson aside. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw Mr. Henderson's face go pale. After they left, Mr. Henderson went down to the basement with a flashlight. I waited upstairs with Mrs. Henderson and Lily. He came back up 20 minutes later. There's a crawl space, he said quietly, behind the water heater. I didn't know it was there. Mrs. Henderson stared at him. It's big enough for someone to fit in, he continued. There are blankets down there. And food wrappers. My stomach turned. Someone's been living in our basement, he said. The police came back. They searched the crawl space. Found evidence someone had been there recently. Very recently. They never found who it was. The Hendersons moved out 2 months later. And I never babysat again. Story 2, the kid who didn't sleep. I was 17 when I agreed to watch Mason. It was supposed to be easy money. One night. Good pay. A kid I'd babysat before. Mason was 9. I'd watched him twice before, both times during the day, and he'd been fine. Quiet. Kept to himself. Played video games. No problems. His mom, Karen, was a single parent. She worked nights sometimes at the hospital as a nurse, and she didn't have a lot of options for overnight care. She called my mom asking if I was available, and my mom said yes before asking me. I didn't mind. Karen paid well, and like I said, Mason was easy. I showed up at their apartment around 8 p.m. on a Friday. It was a small 2-bedroom in an older complex not far from the highway. Karen was already in her scrubs, grabbing her bag. Thank you so much for doing this, she said, handing me a 20 up front. I'll give you the rest in the morning. She went over the basics. Mason had already eaten. He'd probably stay up playing games until I told him to go to bed, which should be around 10 o'clock. There were snacks in the kitchen. She'd be home around 7 a.m. Easy. She called up the stairs to Mason to let him know she was leaving. He didn't respond. She sighed. He's probably got his headset on. Just go up and check on him in a bit, okay? Sure. She left and I locked the door behind her. The apartment was quiet. I could hear the faint sound of video game music coming from upstairs. I went to the kitchen and made myself comfortable, scrolling through my phone. After about 30 minutes, I figured I should check on Mason. I climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor. There were only 2 rooms up here, Karen's bedroom and Mason's. Mason's door was closed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again louder. Still nothing. I opened the door. Mason was sitting on the floor in front of his TV, controller in hand, headset on. He didn't look up. The room was a mess. Clothes on the floor. Empty soda cans on his dresser. Posters of video game characters on the walls. Hey Mason, I said. He didn't respond. I walked over and tapped his shoulder. He jumped, pulling his headset off. What? Just checking on you. You okay? Yeah. He put the headset back on and turned back to the TV. I stood there for a second, then left. Back downstairs, I turned on the TV and tried to find something to watch. I ended up on some true crime show, half listening while scrolling through social media. Around 10 o'clock, I went back upstairs to tell Mason it was time for bed. He was still playing. "Hey buddy, your mom said bedtime's at 10 o'clock. He paused the game and looked at me. "Can I have 10 more minutes?" "Sure." 10 minutes. I went back downstairs. 20 minutes later, the game sounds were still going. I went back up. "Mason, time to get off." He didn't look at me. 5 more minutes. "You already got 10 more minutes. Come on. Bed." He paused the game and stood up, but he didn't turn the TV off. He just walked past me and went to the bathroom. I turned the TV off myself and went back downstairs. A few minutes later, I heard him come out of the bathroom and go into his room. His door closed. Good enough. I settled back on the couch and kept watching TV. Around 11:30, I heard his door open. Footsteps. Then silence. I sat up and listened. Nothing. I got up and went to the bottom of the stairs. "Mason." No answer. I climbed the stairs. His door was open now. His room was dark. I looked inside. Empty. "Mason." I checked the bathroom. Empty. I checked Karen's room. Empty. What the hell? I went back downstairs and that's when I saw him. He was standing in the kitchen. Just standing there. In the dark. I flipped the light on. He didn't move. Didn't blink. He was staring at the wall. "Mason? What are you doing?" He didn't respond. I walked closer. "Mason." His eyes were open, but he didn't seem to see me. I touched his shoulder. He turned his head slowly and looked at me. His expression was completely blank. "Are you okay?" I asked. He blinked once, then turned and walked past me back toward the stairs. I followed him up. He went into his room, climbed into bed, and pulled the covers over himself. I stood in the doorway. "Mason? Are you awake?" No answer. I closed his door and went back downstairs, my heart pounding. Okay, sleepwalking. That's a thing. Kids do that. I tried to calm down. Around 1 a.m., I heard his door open again. Footsteps. I got up and went to the stairs. Mason was standing at the top, looking down at me. "Mason." He didn't say anything. Then he started walking down the stairs. Slowly. One step at a time. His eyes were open. Fixed on me. I backed up as he reached the bottom. He walked past me into the living room and stood in front of the TV. Just stood there. "Mason, you're scaring me. Are you awake?" No response. I walked over and stood next to him. He turned his head and looked at me. "Do you hear it?" he asked. His voice was flat. Emotionless. "Hear what?" "The man." My blood went cold. "What man?" "The man in the walls." I stared at him. "Mason, there's no man in the walls." "Yes, there is. He talks to me." "When?" "At night. When everyone's asleep." "What does he say?" Mason's eyes finally focused on me. Really looked at me. "He says he wants to come out." I grabbed Mason's arm and pulled him toward the stairs. "We're going back to bed. Now." He didn't resist. He just followed me up. I put him back in bed and this time I didn't leave. I sat in the chair in the corner of his room and watched him. He rolled over and closed his eyes. I sat there for 2 hours. He didn't move. Around 3 a.m. I heard something. A soft scratching sound. It was coming from inside the wall. Behind Mason's bed. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Mason's eyes opened. He looked at me. "See," he whispered. "I told you." I got up and pressed my ear against the wall. The scratching stopped. Then I heard it. A voice. Muffled. Distant. But definitely a voice. I couldn't make out words, but it was there. I pulled back and looked at Mason. "How long has this been happening?" "A long time," he said. I pulled out my phone and called Karen. She answered on the third ring, groggy. "Hello?" "Karen, it's me. I need you to come home." What? Is Mason okay?" "He's fine, but there's something wrong with the apartment." "I'm hearing." The scratching started again. Louder. "What is that?" Karen asked. "I don't know. Please just come home." "I'm on my way." She got there in 20 minutes. When she came upstairs, I showed her Mason's room. The scratching had stopped, but I could tell by her face she believed me. She pressed her ear against the wall. Nothing. Then she went downstairs and outside. When she came back, she was pale. "There's a crawl space," she said. "Under the building. The landlord mentioned it once, but I've never been down there." She called the police. They came and searched the crawl space. They found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and a hole cut into the drywall behind Mason's bed. Big enough for someone to see through. Karen moved out the next week, and I learned that sometimes the things kids tell you aren't imagination. Sometimes they're warnings. Story 3, The Perfect Family. I was 18, fresh out of high school when I took the job watching the Carmichael kids. I'd never met them before. It came through a babysitting app I'd signed up for to make extra money before college. The family had good reviews. 5 stars. Multiple comments about how easy the kids were and how well the job paid. $25 an hour for 2 kids. Overnight. That was more than I'd ever made babysitting. I should have questioned why they were paying so much. The house was in one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looks professionally maintained and every car in the driveway costs more than my parents' annual salary. Mrs. Carmichael answered the door. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my prom dress. "You must be Jessica," she said, smiling. "Come in." The inside of the house looked like something from a magazine. White furniture. Modern art on the walls. Everything spotless. 2 kids sat on the couch in the living room. A girl maybe 8 and a boy maybe 6. Both blonde. Both sitting perfectly still. "This is Madison and Carter," Mrs. Carmichael said. "Kids, say hello to Jessica." "Hello, Jessica," they said in unison. It was off. Not in an obvious way. Just enough to make me notice. Mr. Carmichael came down the stairs then. Tall. Suit and tie. He shook my hand with a grip that was just a little too firm. "Thank you for coming on short notice," he said. "We're attending a benefit tonight. We'll be back late." Mrs. Carmichael walked me through the routine. Dinner at 6 o'clock, already prepared, just needed to be heated. Bedtime at 8 o'clock. The kids would get themselves ready. I just needed to supervise. "They're very independent," she said. "Very well behaved. You shouldn't have any problems." She emphasized those last words. You shouldn't have any problems. They left at 5:30. I sat on the couch. The kids sat on the other couch. Silence. "So," I said, "what do you guys like to do?" Madison looked at Carter. Carter looked at Madison. "We like to follow the rules," Madison said. "Okay, what are the rules?" "Dinner at 6 o'clock. Bedtime at 8 o'clock. No TV after 7 o'clock. No going outside." "Got it?" More silence. At exactly 6 o'clock, both kids stood up and walked to the dining room. I followed. They sat down at the table and waited. I heated up the food, some kind of chicken and vegetables, and served it. They ate in silence. Perfect posture. Perfect manners. When they finished, they took their plates to the sink, rinsed them, and put them in the dishwasher. Without being asked. "You guys are very well behaved," I said. "Thank you," they said together. At 7 o'clock, they went upstairs. I followed. Madison went to her room. Carter went to his. I watched as they both changed into pajamas, brushed their teeth, and climbed into bed. At exactly 7:15. "Do you want me to read you a story or anything?" I asked. "No, thank you," Madison said. "We'll go to sleep now. It's only 7:15. We go to sleep at 7:15. I stood there, confused. "Your mom said bedtime was 8 o'clock. Bedtime is 8 o'clock. Sleep is 7:15. I didn't know what to say to that. I left both their doors open and went back downstairs. I sat on the couch and pulled out my phone. The house was silent. At 7:45, I heard a sound. A door opening. I looked up at the stairs. Both kids were standing at the top, looking down at me. "Did you need something?" I called up. They didn't answer. They just stared. "Madison? Carter?" They turned in unison and walked back to their rooms. I heard their doors close. Okay, weird. But whatever. At 8 o'clock, I heard it again. Doors opening. I went to the bottom of the stairs. Both kids were standing in the hallway between their rooms. Just standing there. In the dark. "Guys? What's wrong?" No answer. I climbed the stairs. As I got closer, I could see their faces. Their expressions were blank. Eyes open but unfocused. "Are you sleepwalking?" No response. I reached out to touch Madison's shoulder. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong. Too strong for an 8-year-old. "Don't touch me," she said. Her voice was different. Deeper. I pulled back. "Madison?" She let go and walked back to her room. Carter followed. Their doors closed. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding. I pulled out my phone and texted Mrs. Carmichael. "Hey, just wanted to check in. The kids are acting a little strange. Are they okay?" I waited. No response. I went back downstairs and sat on the couch, staring at my phone. At 8:30, I heard footsteps. Both kids came down the stairs. Together. They walked into the living room and stood in front of me. "We need to tell you something," Madison said. "Okay. Our parents aren't coming back tonight." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? They never come back. What are you talking about?" Carter spoke then. His voice was flat. "They leave us with babysitters, and then they don't come back. That's not funny, guys." "We're not joking," Madison said. "The last babysitter is still here." I stood up. "Where?" They both pointed toward the basement door. "She's downstairs." I stared at them. "I'm calling your parents." I dialed Mrs. Carmichael. It went straight to voicemail. I dialed Mr. Carmichael. Straight to voicemail. I looked at the kids. "Why are you saying this?" "Because it's true," Madison said. "Do you want to see?" "See what?" "The basement." Every instinct told me not to, but I couldn't just leave. I followed them to the basement door. Madison opened it. Stairs leading down into darkness. "There's a light switch," Carter said, pointing. I flipped it. A single bulb lit up at the bottom. I could see concrete floor. Boxes. Normal basement stuff. "Go look," Madison said. "I'm not going down there." "Then we'll show you." They both started down the stairs. I stood at the top, watching. They reached the bottom and walked to the far corner. Madison pointed. "There." I couldn't see what she was pointing at from where I stood. "I'm calling the police," I said. "They won't believe you," Carter said. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The operator answered. 911, what's your emergency?" "I'm babysitting and the kids are saying something happened to the previous babysitter and their parents aren't answering their phones." "What's the address, ma'am?" I gave it to her. "Are you in danger right now?" I looked down at the kids. They were still standing in the basement looking up at me. "I don't know. I'm sending officers to your location. Stay on the line with me." I stayed at the top of the stairs. The kids stayed at the bottom. We stared at each other. 5 minutes later, I heard knocking. "Police." I ran to the front door and opened it. 2 officers stood there. I told them everything. They searched the house. They found nothing. They went down to the basement. Nothing. The kids were back in their rooms. Sleep. The officers asked me more questions. I answered. They checked on the kids. Both sleeping soundly. "Are you sure you're okay?" one officer asked me. "I don't know. Do you want us to stay until the parents get back?" "Yes." They waited with me. At 11:30, Mr. and Mrs. Carmichael came home. They were shocked to see police cars. The officers explained. Mrs. Carmichael looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. Disappointment. Not anger. Not concern. Disappointment. Like I'd failed some kind of test. They paid me and sent me home. I looked up the address later. 7 different babysitters had worked for them in the past year. I tried to contact them through the app. None of them responded. I reported the family. The app removed my review. And I never babysat again. These 3 nights taught me something important. Not every house is safe. Not every family is normal. And sometimes the kids know more than the adults want you to believe. If you're a babysitter, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And if you ever find yourself in a house where the doors won't stay closed, the kids won't stay asleep, or the parents won't answer their phones, leave. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for proof. Just leave. Because some jobs aren't worth the money. And some houses don't want you to leave at all.